what we're delivering. The national living wage up £1,400. That's a pay rise for millions of people. Waiting lists that are coming down, potholes that are being filled, wages going up faster than prices, and interest rates coming down. We are beginning to turn the page on this, but we also need to call out reform. Because they talk about workers' rights, they talk about protecting people at work. But what do they do in Parliament? They vote against legislation what would improve the protection that people have at work.
Keir Starmer, the leader of the UK Labour Party, finds himself embroiled in a political crisis that threatens to undo his leadership and the credibility of his party. Multiple issues have converged, each amplifying the pressure on Starmer's premiership, creating a perfect storm of political turmoil. Among the most significant concerns are a series of resignations from high-ranking Labour councillors, the departure of his communications director and, perhaps most damaging, the looming threat of a major lawsuit that could potentially force him out of office. These challenges are not isolated incidents, but rather symptoms of a larger failure in leadership that has shaken both the foundation of the Labour Party and public trust in its ability to govern effectively. The resignation of seasoned members from the party, including long-serving Labour councillors, is perhaps the clearest signal of the extent of Starmer's troubles. These individuals, who had spent years, even decades, building the party's presence on the ground, now feel alienated from the leadership they once supported. The party's failure to address crucial issues such as the pension rights of the WASPy women or the Post Office Horizon scandal, which ruined the lives of innocent sub-postmasters, has led many to question whether Starmer's leadership is truly in touch with the needs of ordinary people. The growing disconnect between Starmer's rhetoric and his party's actions has left the public disillusioned, with many of his core supporters now questioning the integrity of the party under his watch. As Starmer struggles to contain these internal crises, the looming lawsuit presents an even more pressing challenge. This potential legal battle has the capacity to further tarnish his reputation and disrupt the Labour Party's ability to present a coherent and united front. With growing dissatisfaction from both within the party and the electorate, Starmer now faces a pivotal moment in his leadership. His inability to effectively manage the situation or offer clear solutions is only intensifying the public's frustration. The political and economic landscape has become more volatile, and Starmer's leadership appears increasingly weak and indecisive. The Labour Party, once a dominant force in British politics, now finds itself at a crossroads, with the future of its leadership uncertain. If Starmer cannot restore confidence within his party and the wider public, his premiership may be irreparably damaged. The clock is ticking, and the pressure on Starmer to take decisive action is mounting with each passing day. The recent resignations of key Labour councillors have sent shockwaves through the party, signalling a deepening crisis under Keir Starmer's leadership. The departure of these councillors, including seasoned veterans like Sandra Peake, has shaken the very foundation of Labour's local presence, particularly in Bolsover, where these individuals were once seen as the backbone of the party. Sandra Peake, who had devoted over 3 decades of her life to Labour, was particularly vocal about her disillusionment with the current direction under Starmer. Her resignation alongside her colleagues was not a decision made lightly. It was a direct response to Starmer's leadership and his failure to address the issues that matter most to Labour's grassroots supporters. These councillors were once the pillars of Labour's community outreach, working tirelessly to represent the interests of working-class voters in their constituencies. Now, they have publicly stated that they no longer recognise the party they dedicated their lives to. This dramatic exit highlights the growing divide between Starmer's leadership and the very people who have been Labour's strongest supporters for decades. The councillors' resignations were not just a personal decision, they were a statement about the party's fundamental shift away from its roots. The reasons they gave for leaving were deeply telling, underscoring the party's abandonment of key issues such as the plight of the WASPy women. To the WASPy women, born in the 1950s, were unfairly affected by changes to their pension age, and many were left in financial distress with little to no support. For Starmer and Labour, this issue has become a point of contention. Instead of fighting for these women's rights, Starmer's Labour has turned a blind eye, leaving these voters feeling betrayed. The resignation of experienced Labour councillors, who had long championed working-class causes, is a direct reflection of this failure. The same can be said about the Post Office Horizon scandal, where innocent sub-postmasters were wrongfully prosecuted due to faulty software. Their lives were ruined, with many losing their homes, marriages, and even their mental health. The lack of response from Starmer's Labour has only deepened the sense of alienation felt by these workers, and now, many councillors have had enough. The timing of these resignations is especially damaging. The fact that multiple councillors have walked away from Labour simultaneously sends a clear and powerful message. This is not just a personal grievance, but a collective vote of no confidence in Starmer's leadership. These resignations go beyond simple political differences. They are a reflection of the broader discontent with Labour's current direction. What's more telling is that these councillors did not choose to join another party. Instead, they became independents, choosing to distance themselves from Labour entirely. This decision is a stark indication that the issue lies with Starmer himself, not just the party's politics. The departure of these long-standing Labour figures is a blow that goes beyond mere politics. It's a deep wound to the very soul of the party. Keir Starmer's leadership has faced increasing criticism, not just from opposition parties, but also from within his own ranks. The mixed messaging and inconsistency in his approach to both domestic and international issues have become central to the growing discontent with his leadership. Starmer's public persona of unity and change contrasts sharply with the reality within the Labour Party, where divisions over his handling of key policies and events have grown more pronounced. His failure to provide a clear direction has left Labour vulnerable, with many questioning whether he is truly capable of leading the country through complex challenges. The Labour Party's internal struggle became evident when long-serving councillors resigned, citing Starmer's leadership as the primary reason for their departure. These councillors, who had been loyal to the party for decades, expressed their frustration with Starmer's lack of response to crucial issues like the WASPy women's pensions and the Post Office Horizon scandal. The absence of a decisive, cohesive strategy has caused the party to lose its footing both among its own members and in the eyes of the public. Starmer's inability to present a unified front has led to growing fears within Labour that the party is losing its identity and relevance in the political landscape. Internally, the party is also grappling with questions of loyalty and trust. Starmer's leadership has been described as passive, with critics pointing out that he often seems more like a figurehead than an active leader. There are growing concerns that Starmer is more focused on managing the appearance of leadership, rather than taking bold actions to address the country's pressing issues. This perception is damaging not only to his reputation, but also to Labour's prospects in future elections. His failure to confront critical issues head-on has created a vacuum in leadership, leaving the public and party members questioning whether he has the will or capability to drive real change. At the same time, Starmer's failure to reconcile his diplomatic stance on issues like the Trump administration and Brexit has left Labour in a politically compromised position. His inability to take a firm stance has undermined his credibility, making it difficult for the party to navigate both domestic and international challenges effectively. His mixed messages on these key topics have only served to deepen the divisions within Labour and exacerbate the sense of confusion around the party's direction. As a result, Starmer's leadership is increasingly viewed as indecisive and ineffective. The lack of clarity in his political messaging has not only alienated long-time supporters, but also failed to inspire confidence in potential voters. Labour's growing internal conflicts, combined with Starmer's inability to resolve them, paint a bleak picture for the party's future. If he cannot address the inconsistencies in his leadership and present a clear vision, Labour's ability to lead the country in the future will be severely compromised. As the crisis surrounding Keir Starmer's leadership deepens, the damage to the Labour Party's credibility is becoming increasingly apparent, both within the party and among the wider public. The inconsistencies in Starmer's handling of key issues, combined with the resignations of long-standing councillors, have eroded trust in his ability to lead effectively. The public's growing frustration with his leadership is mirrored by increasing disillusionment among Labour's grassroots supporters, who feel that the party no longer represents their interests. What was once a party united under shared values now appears fractured and uncertain, with the cracks widening as each day passes. Starmer's inability to deliver on key promises and his failure to take decisive action on critical issues have left many questioning his competence. The resignation of influential party members, especially those who have dedicated decades to Labour, serves as a stark reminder of how far the party has drifted from its core values. These councillors, once the backbone of the party, expressed deep dissatisfaction with Starmer's leadership, citing his lack of clear direction and failure to address pressing issues like pension rights for the WASPy women and the wrongful prosecutions of sub-postmasters in the Horizon scandal. These are issues that resonate deeply with working-class voters, yet Starmer has failed to offer meaningful solutions or even show the necessary leadership to address them. The political fallout from this has been swift and severe. Labour's support among its traditional base has been eroded, as many voters feel abandoned by a party that once championed their causes. The lack of a clear, cohesive strategy to deal with economic challenges, rising crime rates, and social justice issues has left the public wondering if the party has lost touch with the realities they face. Starmer's leadership has become synonymous with indecision and political expediency, as he seems more concerned with managing the appearance of leadership than actually delivering on the promises he made. Moreover, the internal divisions within Labour have only added to the sense of political instability. Starmer's handling of the party's response to the Trump administration and Brexit, for example, has been widely criticised as weak and inconsistent. His failure to present a firm, unified stance on these key issues has further undermined his credibility and created confusion among both party members and voters. The situation has reached a point where Starmer's own leadership is now seen as a liability rather than an asset to the party. At the heart of this crisis is a deeper issue. The Labour Party has failed to live up to the expectations of its supporters. The disconnect between Starmer's vision for the party and the needs of working-class communities is becoming more apparent by the day. As public trust in Labour continues to diminish, the pressure on Starmer to turn things around grows ever more intense. If he cannot address the internal divisions, restore the party's credibility, and offer a clear path forward, Labour's future in British politics will remain uncertain. Keir Starmer's leadership is increasingly under scrutiny, as his handling of both domestic crises and international relations has come under fire. His recent participation in the Ukraine summit in Paris, while Britain grapples with multiple internal issues, has drawn significant criticism. The timing of this trip, amidst a growing crisis in his own government, highlights a pattern of prioritizing appearances over substance. While the summit discussions about bolstering Ukraine's defense are crucial, Starmer's decision to attend while major issues were unraveling back home felt like an attempt to distract from the mounting problems within his party and government. This international photo op served to project an image of leadership on the world stage, but the timing was perceived as tone-deaf. As violence escalates in British streets and inflation continues to burden families, Starmer's absence from domestic affairs seemed like a deliberate effort to avoid confronting the real crises facing the nation. His participation in global discussions, particularly on military matters involving Ukraine, underscored a troubling disconnect. The public began to wonder whether Starmer, in his quest to appear involved on the world stage, was ignoring the pressing needs of his own country. What made this situation more concerning was Starmer's passive response to key domestic issues. The rise in violent crime, struggling public services, and the ongoing cost-of-living crisis were left largely unaddressed. While Starmer's trip to Paris symbolized his commitment to international diplomacy, it also highlighted his failure to address the core problems plaguing British society. There was no pushback or strong leadership on his part when critical issues, such as military involvement in Ukraine, were discussed, leaving many to question whether Starmer had the resolve to take charge during crises at home. His focus on international relations without offering any substantial solutions to domestic challenges only fueled the narrative that Starmer is more concerned with global optics than with fixing the problems that his government promised to solve. The decision to sidestep the urgent domestic concerns in favor of diplomatic events with Macron and other leaders was a strategic blunder. It reinforced the public's growing perception that Starmer is more interested in maintaining the appearance of leadership than in delivering tangible results. In a time of political uncertainty, the British public needs a leader who is not only capable of navigating complex international relations, but is also deeply attuned to the immediate concerns of the people. Starmer's failure to balance these priorities has damaged his credibility, leaving many to wonder if his leadership is truly in touch with the needs of the nation. The contrast between his international engagement and the lack of action at home has only heightened the sense that Starmer's leadership is disconnected from the reality faced by ordinary Britons. As Keir Starmer's leadership faces increasing pressure, the UK Labour Party's future is also under threat due to the potential for massive legal action. One of the most alarming developments is the controversy surrounding the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which, if passed, could have serious implications for property rights across the UK. This legislation allows councils to purchase land at its current market value without considering the future potential of the land once developed. The difference between current and future values could be substantial, with landowners potentially losing millions in compensation, as they would only be compensated for the value of the land in its current state, rather than its potential value once developed into housing or infrastructure. This move has caused widespread alarm not just among farmers but also among property owners and civil liberties campaigners, who see it as an overreach of governmental power. International comparisons have further worsened the situation, as countries like India, which compensate landowners at fairer rates, have drawn stark contrasts to the UK's approach. Experts, including global investors with experience in building projects, have criticised the policy, noting that it undercuts landowners' rights and could lead to a flood of legal challenges. These potential class action lawsuits could cost the government billions in compensation and legal fees, further weakening the Labour Party's standing and credibility. This legal threat comes at a time when Labour is already facing significant internal turmoil, and Starmer's leadership is under scrutiny. The possibility of such a lawsuit only adds to the growing sense that Starmer's government is failing on multiple fronts, from policy management to international relations. As the public becomes increasingly aware of the implications of this policy, Labour's inability to effectively address these issues may prove to be the final blow to Starmer's leadership and the party's reputation. See you soon.